Hey, hello guys, this is Karthik from executeautomation.com and this is part 5 of our Selenium automation with C Sharp. And in this part, we're going to write some custom methods for controls in C Sharp. And I have splitted this custom control methods in two parts. And in this part, we are going to discuss some of the setter methods which we can write for the controls. And in the next part, we'll discuss about some of the getter methods from the controls. And before watching this part, I would request you to watch part 4 since this part is going to be a continuation of that part. So, custom methods for controls. So in this part, as I already told, we are going to write some of the custom methods for control to set the values in them, like in text box, in drop down box, and in checkbox. So in these controls, we're going to set some values into them, and then we're going to perform the operations. In the next part, we are going to get the values out from the controls to perform some of the operations. So we are going to write some of the custom methods for these controls in this video of this video series. So for doing that, let's flip to Visual Studio. So this is the same project which we worked in the last video of this video series. And what I have did here is I have just changed the URL to exitautomation.com/demo site/index.html with some of the parameters passed here. So what is this URL actually? So if you have already watched some of my video series in Execute Automation channels for CoderDUI automation as well as Selenium tidbits, you might know this URL actually. If not, it's not a very weird thing. So first I will copy this and let me paste it to this URL. And so if you see here, this is the URL actually where it's taking to. So this is the page. So basically, even if I log out, you can see this is the actual login page of this website. So this website actually does nothing, but this web page actually has a lot of controls just for demonstration purpose so that we can use it for automating this application and see if all the controls are working fine or not. So this is just dummy application, right? So even if you don't give any username and password and if you hit login button here, it will take you to the home page. And this is the actual home page of this website, and it has some of the menu controls, and there is some drag and drop controls, some of the user form, and this is the same user form page, and it also has a logout. It has a HTML pop-up window, and it has a JavaScript alert window. So basically, whatever scenarios we encounter in automations, most of the controls are available in this particular form. So our intention for this video is to create some custom methods for the controls like drop down, text box, checkbox, etc. So for doing that, let's use this page. That's why I've just copied this URL and pasted it right here. That's it. And we already know that in the last video of this video series, we searched for the execute automation in the Google's text box, Google search text box. So this is the Google search text box. And then we saw how things work there. But instead, what we're going to do in this video is we're going to write some custom methods instead of doing this way, right? So my intention is to write like this. So I want to, if I want to enter a text, then I would like to write a custom method like this, enter text. So currently this method is not available. So let me just comment this thing out and let me just write what is my expectation in my control. So enter text of the element which I'm going to search for. So this is the element which I'm going to search. So as you did here, the first thing is you search for the element, and then you're going to send the value, this execute automation. So this is going to be my value which I'm going to send for this particular method. And then the most important thing is this, the by.name or by.id or by.css. So this is nothing but the properties by which you can identify the elements in the DOM. DOM is something but document object model, or you can also say the page. So in order for that to be identified, you need to also pass this information to my method, right? Are you going to identify my element using ID, or are you going to identify my element by text or by its name? how you're going to identify my element. So for doing that, we need to also pass the type of my control. So let me say type. So these three values I need to pass to my enter text method. So this is how my enter text method is going to look like, right? So for doing that, instead of writing all the code in your program.cs, it is always a wise idea to write that code in a separate class file. So for that, I'm going to right click this project. I'm going to hit add and then hit the class. So let's give it a meaningful name. So I'm going to call this as Selenium set methods, right? And I'm going to hit add here. So this class file will have all my set methods like entering a text, clicking a button, or selecting a checkbox, or selecting a drop down value. So all these actions which you're going to perform in the DOM of your page, so all these things will sit into this particular class file, Selenium set method. So let's write a simple method for our enter text. So this method is going to be a very generic method to support all the text box control for your applications, right? So let's write a method. So since it is a library, it's always a wise idea to write it as a static method. So public static void enter text. All right. So as I already told, we need these elements to be passed as the parameter for this particular method. So I web element for my element, and then string of the value which I'm going to type there, and the type of the control. So string of value and string of type, or let's call this as little meaningful name as element type, right? So I element reference, again control dot, and this will bring you up this option to add the reference. Great. And then we are right here. Okay, the next question is, we need to find the element which we have passed here. Again, we need two more things. One is the driver, the driver's instance. So what we did here is we passed the driver, we used the driver instance dot find element of by dot id or name or something like that, which means we need the driver's instance variable for my method, which is not available in this class. Actually, you declared this in this particular class, right here. So we need to somehow pass this instance as the parameter for this method. So which means we need to again create one more parameter here, which is nothing but web driver. Only if we pass the instance of the driver, we can identify that particular. Only if we pass the instance of the driver here, we can make use of the driver to find the element and perform the operation, right? So driver, oops, driver dot find element of. See, as you can see here, it accepts the by, right? Again, it's by class dot. So let's say I'm going to identify using my ID. So you can take an ID here, and you can see that the parameter it's taking for my ID is actually string, but not the iWeb element type, right? So this is what we need to do here. Instead of iWeb element, we can change it to string type, right? And then we can pass this value straight away right here, right? But again, this is only for ID. What if I want to search for a name or a link text or a class name? So for doing that, we need to write a if condition here, right? If value is equal to ID, right? So do this. Or if the value is equal to link text. Again, it should be very meaningful here, because for enter text, we can't have a link text there. Rather, we can have a name because link text is only applicable for a tag, so nothing but an href tag, not for the input type. So it can't be link text there. So it should be name, private dot find element by dot name of element, and then we'll put right here. Okay, so this is fine for finding the element. So then we need to type the value into my control. So for doing that, you can either get this value into a web element interface, and then from that you can pass the value. You can type the value using send keys. Rather, you can directly do in this way also. Dot send keys of the value. You can directly pass it right here, right? Instead of creating one more object called iWeb element and then performing the operation as you did right here in this code. Find element, driver dot find element of the element, and then performing the operation like element dot send keys. I'm directly performing it right here, right? Since the return type of the find element is iWeb element, you can directly use the send keys method as well. And then I'm going to pass the value here. Okay, this is great for the enter text. Now let's write one more method for performing a click operation into a button or a checkbox or a option button, etc. So wherever you need to perform a click operation, you can make use of this particular method. So for that, I'm going to write a method called public static void click. So this is going to be very generic. So click dot, again the parameters are going to be the same. So for the time being, I'm going to copy this, guys, and I'm going to paste it right here. Right, but the value doesn't come for this particular method since we don't require it, because we can just click the value, click the element there, so value won't come. And then I'm going to again copy this code and I'm going to paste it right here. So instead of send keys, I'm going to call the click method. That's it. So simple, right? Great. And again, oops, see the mistake I did here. Here it can't be a value. Oh my god, so sorry for that. It can't be value, it should be element type. So sorry for that. Oh my god, how I missed this. So the if condition should be element type. It can't be a value, right? Great. So this will now work fine. So if element type is equal to ID, then perform this operation. If the element type is equal to name, then perform this operation. Find this value, find this element, and then perform click operation. Great. This will work fine. And let's write one more method, the last method, for selecting a drop-down control. So I just chose this because most of the people were asking me this question, how to select a drop-down control in Selenium with C#. So that's why I'm writing this. Guys, this is for you. So public static void select drop-down. Oops. All right. And then the parameters are going to be pretty same for this drop-down, right? But here there is something called select element class. So only this class can actually perform the operation. This actually sits in a namespace called openqa.selenium.support.ui. So this is the namespace where it sits. So let's type this and see if we have this namespace. So openqa.selenium, yep, we have. But as you can see, we don't have a package in Java. We call it as package. Here, there is no reference for support. Do you see that? Which means somehow we missed it. Somehow the reference we added here doesn't have this. So we need to again add the reference for selenium.support. For doing that, I click, select the new package manager, and then search for selenium.support. And now, as you can see, it brings me up a new package to be installed. Support support classes for .NET bindings of Selenium WebDriver API. So this is a support classes. So this is a separate package. So we need to install this one. So it is downloading and it's installing. So now you can see that it has added a reference to my project webdriver.support. So now if I type using openqa.selenium.support, can you see that? It brings me up this namespace support.ui, right? So if you add this, you can now have this select element class here. Can you see that? It brings me up this. Great. So this is where the drop down selection option appears. So here I'm going to do it a little different. So let me copy this code and let me paste it right here. So actually the select element, or let's say select element is equal to new select element of, if you can see here, it accepts the parameters iWeb element. But here we didn't pass the iWeb element as the parameter anywhere. We have just passed string element here, right? So even if we pass iWeb element here, we need to again find this element and then perform the operation. So instead of doing this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the code in a little different way. So new of select element of. So now we know that this find element will return iWeb element as the return type. So I'm going to use this guy, right? So I'm going to pass this guy as the parameter for my select element. Dot, if you put here, this will bring you the new options for select element classes. So now you can see there are a lot of methods available for selecting a value from the drop down list. Now here you can see this, it has some methods called select by index, select by text, select by value. And we're going to use select by text method to select the text from my control, right? Great. And the text is going to be my value. Great. So this will select the value available in my drop down box with the text which I'm specifying in my value option right here, right? Similarly, I'm going to just copy this code and I'm going to paste it right here, and instead of ID, let's call this as name. Great. Right? So now this method will perform the drop down selection option from my page, right? So great that we have written some 3 custom methods for a text box, for performing click operation, and selecting a drop down value from a drop down list box. Great. So now we need to test it, right? So why don't we start writing the code for that? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete all this code from my execute test method. And then let's start writing the code for my executeautomation.com/demo sites page, right? So the first and foremost thing is we need to identify the name or ID of these controls. So what is this? The ID is title ID, and we're going to write for just one control. Let's say I'm going to write for this particular text box. So its name is initial, and then this particular button we need to click, right? So drop down and one particular text box and one button. So we're going to use all these guys and see if our custom library is really working or not. So again, this is title ID. Okay, so the first thing is we're going to select the title. So for that, I'm going to call my custom method. So the custom method is nothing but it's sitting in my Selenium set method class dot, and now you can see it brings all the methods which we have in the particular class. So since we're going to select the drop down, so let's select the select drop down, and here we need to pass the reference of the driver. So driver of the string element. So it is nothing but the title ID and the value. So what we're going to select here, Mr. Dot. So this is the value which I'm interested in selecting. So why don't I select this? So it's Mr. Oops. See, it brought everything, every single piece. So Mr. Oh man, why is this not coming? So let me delete this and this as well. All right, so this is the value. And then element type. So we're selecting what? ID, right? So let's give this as ID. Great, right? So this will select the drop down for me. The next thing is I need to type the value for initial, right? So what is its ID or name? Okay, the name is initial. So let me use this guy. So Selenium set method dot enter text of again the driver dot the element is going to be this, and this time I'm going to select the name. Okay, the value I need to pass. Let's say the value is execute automation. All right, and then the value is going to be name. Great. All right, and then I need to perform a click operation. So for that, let me select this button and see what is its name. It's save. All right, so again Selenium set method dot click of the driver, and the element is going to be this guy, and the element type is going to be name. All right, great. That's it. So we've written the code. So why don't we try to run this code and see if this thing really works? So I'm going to run this selector test. So this should open me up the Chrome and then perform the intended operations. All right, the Chrome is opened. Ah, so fast. Man, we didn't see anything. So why don't we put a breakpoint in here and see if this really works, because it's pretty fast and we can't see anything. So let's debug this selector test. All right, now we can see it has selected the value Mr. in the drop down, and it has typed execute automation, right? And the next thing is need to perform the click operation in the save. So let me just go by step over. Of course it's clicked this save button, but we can't see here because it's running behind the scenes, right? So let me stop this. So that's it guys. So this is how you can write a custom methods for each and every of your controls. And now just think of this. What are the kind of controls that we have in our web page? Most of the controls are covered here. But some of the other controls is like table, and also some of the controls like menu, like this. And some of the other controls will be like some JavaScript controls. So only those are the type of controls to be available in your page, right? So other than that, most of the controls are covered in this particular page. So these are the custom methods for some of the most commonly used controls. So you can make use of these codes for writing custom methods for other controls as well, right? So these are the methods for setting the values into your page. So that's it guys. Thank you very much for watching this video and have a great day.